Hello, everybody. This is the Old Bear from the Old Bear's Den of Bigfoot. We're bringing you another story from my home state of West Virginia. This happened up in Randolph County. It's a mountainous part of the state, and this young couple decided to go camping on the Labor Day weekend. This happened a couple of years ago, and yes, I am pulling stories from my files to bring to you. Right now, I'm on layoff, but it's no big deal. I still got enough stories to supply you with at least one a week, if not two a week, for the next 30 or 40 weeks. Anyway, as I was saying, they decided to go on this camping trip, and they're going to go up into a remote area to do a little camping, just the husband and the wife, and they don't have any kids, they're younger. He makes good money, so they have a full-size pickup with the crew cab and an 8-foot bed on the pickup. Well, they went out and bought them a tent that fits the truck bed of the in the pickup. This is a full size truck, and they decide to go out, go camping. They get all their stuff gathered up, food they're going to take with them, and the wife says she's going to cook, and can't cook on an open fire and all this stuff. And well, they get up there on Friday afternoon. They set their tent up in the truck, and they kind of police the ground of where they're at. They're on an old logging road. It goes back out in the middle of nowhere. It dead ends in the middle of nowhere, and they're up there to have fun. And the husband dug a little fire pit and put stones around it so they could have an open fire, and they could roast hot dogs, marshmallows, make s'mores, the stuff you do when you camp. So Friday night, they eat dinner. The wife fixes dinner, and they eat their dinner of hamburgers and fried potatoes. Now, here in my home state, that's a pretty good dinner. And got a little wind issue today, y'all. Anyway, they ate their dinner, and they sat around the campfire probably 3 hours after it got dark. And it's around 10, 11 o'clock, and they decided to go to bed. And they get to bed, and all around 2 o'clock in the morning, he gets elbowed by his wife, and she's upset. I mean, she elbowed him pretty good in his chest, and said, "You need to quit snoring." He said, "But honey, I'm not snoring. I'm laying on my right side facing you, and you got your back to me, and I'm not snoring." She said, "Well, what is that noise then?" He said, "What noise?" He didn't hear anything. Evidently something was making a growl, or it could have been, it sounded like somebody snoring. Whatever kind of noise it was, she heard and proceeded to be her husband snoring. Anyway, they go through this for about 30 minutes, and they go back to sleep. Well, he said probably another hour or so, he woke up. Just something made him wake up, and he looked out towards the fire, and there was something blocking the firelight on the tent. In the lantern that was out there. The fire was almost out. It wasn't dry, so they wasn't worried about catching the woods on fire. So he had lit a lantern before he went to bed, and it was still on, still bright, and it was something was blocking all the light on the tent. He said it looked like a human form. So he rose up in the bed of the truck and said, "Hey, I don't know who you are, but you need to get out here, leave us alone. If you don't, I'm going to shoot." Well, he moved, and this thing took off, turned, and ran. They got up next morning, and, he told his wife what happened, and she said, "Well, it's probably just somebody out coon hunting or something like that, running their dogs or whatever." And he said, "Well, you're probably right. They forgot about it." He said, "But I want to run to town later today and pick up some things." So, all about 1 o'clock they left. They pulled the tent out of the back of the truck and broke it down and hid it there in their campsite. Put it in a lock. They folded it back up and put it in a lock box. Evidently, it wasn't very hard to assemble this tent, so they broke it down and put it away. Anyway, they went to town, and while he was in town, he found a gun store. Well, while he was there at the gun store, he bought a 12-gauge shotgun, bought shells for it. He bought buckshot and a box of slugs. And so they went back to camp after picking up a few items. And they went back to the camp, reset up their tent, put it all back out, fixed it back to the truck, and had the sliding glass window on the pickup open. And there was a little small door that you could go through right there that matched up with the window, the sliding glass window on the pickup. So this is pretty extravagant tent to put in your pickup. Anyway, they sat around and went walking a few times after they got back, and then they made dinner around 6 o'clock and said that they had hot dogs and that they roasted on the open fire on sticks, and they had something else with it. Don't remember what it was now. Oh, I'm sorry. They made a concoction of cubed potatoes and onions and had that for dinner. Well, they sat around camp, talked, and he got out his coffee pot and thought he was going to make dinner, his coffee there on the open fire. Well, his wife talked him into going to bed around 9 o'clock. And they went to bed and crawled up in the tent together and were asleep. And about between 12:30 and 1 o'clock, something woke him up. And he could hear growling outside of the tent. He thought it might be a bear. So he grabbed this 45 that they had in the tent with him. The 12 gauge and everything was in the truck. Just in the back seat of the pickup. He then went and got out of the tent, slipped his boots on, no socks, just slipped his boots on. He had a pair of sweatpants on that he was sleeping in and a t-shirt, and slipped out of the back of the truck and was looking around trying to find, this noise. So he decided he was going to sit up for a little while, and he fixed him some coffee and in an old style percolator, and he lit the lanterns. He actually went over and lit another lantern that he had set up across the road and turned it on, got it to working, and turned it all the way up on high. And he gathered a bunch of wood that afternoon when they got back, just in case they needed it for the fire. So he built the fire up pretty good. And it was throwing lights over the two lanterns. They were fully pressurized, going at full force. And he sat there and he drank a cup of coffee, and then he drank another one, and walked over to beside the truck and relieved himself, and then got back over and sat down and drank his last cup of coffee and got back in the tent with his wife and went back to sleep. Well, something woke her up. She screamed. He thinks that maybe something rocked the truck, and he got out of the tent and looked around, and his wife said, "Let's just go. Something's here. I want to leave." She just did not like the situation. She was scared to death. And as a husband, dutiful husband, you leave. So they started breaking things down. She stayed in the tent, folding the blankets and all that stuff, and the sleeping bags that they were laying on. She was folding all that stuff up to put it in the back seat of the pickup. And he went over to turn the lantern off that was across the road. Well, he turned it off, and as he was turned it off and was taking it down, he heard his wife scream. Well, when he heard her scream, he turned around automatically, and 15 feet from him was his wife being pulled out of the tent by this large creature. And he had his 45 on his hip. He pulled his 45 and shot 2 shots into the ground between him and this Bigfoot. Well, it let go of his wife's leg, and she scrambled back in the truck, in the bed of the truck in the tent, and was screaming her head off. He looked at this thing and did the only thing that he could think to do was talk to it. I guess that's how some people react to seeing a creature like this, and said, "Look, you need to leave my wife alone. Get out of here now, or I'm going to start shooting you, and I'm going to empty everything I got in you, and then I'm going to get some more and empty more into you." So he's making threats to this Bigfoot. Well, this Bigfoot just kind of growls at him, and he shoots another shot over top of this thing's head. He said this thing was between 8 and 9 foot tall, about 5 foot across to the edge of both arms through the shoulders, and it was just big and mean and looking, and it was covered in dark hair, and it was just big. It had a belly on it and everything. Belly was protruding out about like mine does, and y'all have seen my video where I was standing there in front of the fire, and so you have an idea what I'm talking about. Anyways, he went through, when he shot over this thing's head, it turned and ran back into the woods. Well, he got over to his wife, checked on his wife, told his wife to get out, get in the front seat. She had shoved all that stuff through the front window. He grabbed the cooler, collapsed the tent, took the rods out of the support rods, and it was attached to the truck bed. He closed the tailgate, threw the cooler over on top of the tent to hold it in there, and the only thing he had left, he went over and was going to pour some water on the fire, and she said, "No, don't do that. Don't do that. Leave it burning. Leave it alone. Don't mess with it. Just let's get everything gathered up and let's go." Well, he had to let the 2 lanterns cool before he could put them in the truck, because it would have burned up their tent, and then it could have been a fire in the back of the truck, which is not a good thing to happen. So he set the 2. He got in the truck with his wife, and she got calmed down, and she finally fell asleep for a little bit. And this all started about 4 o'clock in the morning, and at least he thought it was 4 o'clock in the morning, and daylight don't come at that time of year till about 6:30 in the morning. So he's waiting on these 2 lanterns to cool off just so he can jerk them in the truck and set them on the floor, and his wife can hold them until they can get down there on the main road and stop at the gas station, put them in their metal containers in the back of the truck. So they're sitting there, and all of a sudden the truck rocks, and he looks out the left side, to his left, which is out the driver's side window, and there are 2 of them, 2 Bigfoot standing there on the other side of the fire. It's the big one that grabbed his wife, and then there was a female standing there. Well, he looked out the passenger side of the window, and there was another one that was leaned over looking into the window at them, and she saw it and started screaming her head off, and he put it in gear, reached out, grabbed the 2 lanterns, and took off down the road. When they got to the main road, they took the 2 lanterns, put them away, and went down to the gas station, filled the truck up, and went home. So they cut their weekend short. Now, I do not know why these Bigfoot done this. I can speculate all I want, but I'm going to leave the speculation up to each and every one of y'all. Y'all give me your ideas on this. Think why they done it. And that's this story for this week, guys. Hope you enjoy it. And if you do, tell your friends. And if you don't, still tell your friends. Come on and take a look at it. See what you think and let me know. I thank each and every one of you for coming. And may each and every one of you be blessed and watched over by the Lord. Thank you. Bye-bye.